Welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir. Good to be with you and share some fun ideas today.
I love it. I love it. It's been a few years now since we we were able to travel and meet in person.
Absolutely.
But yeah, we're doing our thing, learning in different ways. And let's dive right in because why I'm so excited to have you on the show today is one of the biggest challenges facing entrepreneurs and just I think people in general is that word called selling, right?
It scares people, there's no doubt.
And that's why having you, who has been a real master in this game, honestly, that's why I'm so honored that you're on and to really share some of your fun insights, as you're saying. But how have you noticed the game of selling over the last 2 or 3 years? Because it seems like selling has really been changing, as far as really being authentic and presenting, not really selling, but serving. How do you sort of see the way things are changing around selling?
Great question. So in the last 24 months, as we're recording and airing this, we're in the year of 2021, for point of reference for people that may stumble upon you and I in this podcast in the future. And, one of the things that's interesting in management and leadership of businesses that are, in revenue stream, that are, local based or regional or national or global, whether it's a small enterprise with just a small number of employees, a self-employed family-owned business, or whether you're a multi-billion-dollar concern, the answers to your questions don't change. And so that's the first thing I would put out there for everyone to reference. Saying that, well, they're bigger or larger, so that's why they can do this, or they're smaller, they're more nimble, and that's why they can do that, is really a cop-out and excuse. Some of the basic models and maps or tenets of success are scalable and transferable no matter who you are, no matter where you are. So one of the things that I've recognized during 2020 and this global challenge and pandemic that everyone was tossed into dealing with is that it really is nothing different than what was going on in 2019. And let me categorize and qualify that to talk about selling. A lot of businesses in 2019 and going backwards were very successful, and they had their momentum of the company organization that could carry them through some bad decisions. And sometimes leaders and owners of businesses, the momentum of the organization carried the fact that they really weren't all that good, and people thought they were good because it was a marquee brand. A second answer to that is that sometimes those businesses are successful because maybe senior leaders realized where their weaknesses and gaps are or were, and they were smart enough to hire people around them to fill those gaps because it was their strengths. And those businesses were successful. So all of that says nothing about your question of selling, but it says everything about selling. And here's my point. What COVID has taught us is that every business whose senior leadership team had selling somewhere in their historical pedigree, resume, all survived or thrived in 2020 and 21. And every one of those businesses whose senior leaders did not have selling in their pedigree or resume either survived by barely hanging on, or tremendous numbers of businesses went out of business. And the reason of businesses went out of business or are barely struggling now is your question of selling. So has selling changed? The basic tenets of selling, which we can talk about here today, no, they've never changed, but that's what everyone thinks is, okay, I've got to change this. All that the pandemic has shown us is that there's multiple ways to take your service or product to the marketplace, whether it is a drive-up window at your restaurant or business, or walk-in traffic, or someone comes in and sits down, or whether it is someone buying it off of the floor and it's a showroom and then they go around to the back to pick it up from the warehouse side of the building, or your store is a pseudo warehouse, Walmart as an example, or whether you pivoted, there's your buzzword, which I hate because, again, it shouldn't be a buzzword. Everyone should have already been, flexible enough to understand the marketplace is evolving. There's a key word to understand sales. And as your market evolves, how do you recognize what are going to be the distribution channels of how to get your product to people? Costco, which is a global brand primarily in North America. Sam's Club is a global market, but primarily in the U.S. or North America. Walmart, use them as examples. Large, retail stores across Canada or United States or Mexico or Europe that would be out there. Again, people were conditioned. You went to a facility to go in to buy your deliverable for the most part. And what the pandemic showed us, at least here in North America, and primarily the United States, imagine in January of 2020, everyone had the thought of, investing in Uber Eats or Amazon. You'd be very wealthy today because everyone simply changed their buying approach and they went online to buy what they needed as a service or a deliverable and had it delivered to their own home. So not as many people were driving or going to stores the way they used to. Okay, all that to come back to selling. Selling really comes down to a lot of basic maps. And one that I would share here is this: 4 key elements. If you want to change the buying behavior and psychology of your market space or another person, if you want to get someone to purchase from you, then we have to recognize people are going to buy for only one of or a combination of 4 reasons, period. So you've got to look at your deliverable and say, okay, how does my deliverable speak to my current customers and emerging market, secondary, tertiary, et cetera, people that are buying something to cause them to come to me? Number one, you want to think about the word better. If you can show people you have a service or a product that's better than what they're getting now, everyone's going to consider it. They may not buy it, but they're going to consider it. See, if you also think of these 4 words, Sean, no one's going to do the reverse. No one's going to go to a store and consciously buy something less than what they have now as a norm. No one's going to go in and say, wow, where's your junk aisle? I really want to downgrade my life. So we want better. Second's going to be different. What is different than what I have now in a way that would serve me, word number 1, better than what I have now? So it's always a concept of different. Just making something or offering something different for the sake of being different is not smart. It has to serve a need in the marketplace. And again, so you can apply that towards generational segmentations, which is a component of selling, whether you're marketing to centurions or baby boomers or Generation X or Generation Y or Generation Millennial or Generation Z. They're looking at things in terms of what they want or need that's better. And it may not be how someone through their different generational lens would look at better or the word different. So again, how do you serve different market spaces? So better, different. Third's going to be faster or efficiencies. Again, most people don't want to go buy something that's going to make their life harder and more difficult. They don't want something that's, substandard in quality, and they don't want something that's so different that it's stupid. So again, it's better, different, faster. And then the last one's always cost effective. But the mistake some people make on cost effective is they think they always have to be lowering their price or giving something away. And that's not always true as well. So again, that cost effective is, kind of like the value proposition, if you will. Again, if my price point is going to be a little bit higher or significantly higher than someone else's, there has to be a value proposition. So as I work with senior leaders in marketing and sales, I also follow on LinkedIn, which is really the only business professional social media platform that's out there. You've got Facebook, which serves a demographic. Of course, most people that want to be successful in life, that's not where they live. Or you have Pinterest or Instagram or Twitter, et cetera. But each one serves a purpose. But as I look at LinkedIn as a very valuable resource, whether I'm a smaller or large business enterprise or solo practitioner today, most major businesses have company profiles. So you could follow them without them even knowing you're following them. And you can get collective, market intelligence daily. So during 2020, I followed, in essence, Bugatti, Ferrari, Lamborghini, Rolls-Royce, just as high-end vehicles as an example, along with other businesses. What's fascinating in 2020, when everyone said, the market was tough, every one of those companies had their best sales year ever. So how are you marketing those high-end vehicles? Well, I don't know about you. They're probably not marketing them to me. That's fine. But they're marketing them not by saying we have an inexpensive vehicle that runs like crap and looks ugly. They're using the other words: better, faster, different, cost effective. And cost effective at $500,000 for a car, that's an interesting sales pitch. So one way to sell is go back to some basic models. And then, yes, you can apply that whether you're marketing online, social media, through your website, email marketing, traditional direct mail marketing, billboards on the highway, magazine ads. It all applies to everything. And I can prove that model. This is a long response to your question, but hopefully I'm giving good nuggets. But everyone uses a cell phone today. So even think about your phone. You do an internet search to find something on the internet. Well, those website search engines are smart. They're making money by holding you hostage when you want to go find something. There's that, 3, 4, 5, 6 second ad that pops up, and they have in 3, 4, 5, 6 seconds to accomplish the 4 words I just gave you. So when you're trying to get to that other website and you've got a 6-second pop-up commercial, it's counting down to when you can hit the skip button. If they can convey to you what they have that's better, different, new, or cost-effective that meets a need you have, a pain point you have, in a way, you'll typically continue for a couple more seconds to watch that ad. But in that 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 seconds, if they're not hitting better, faster, different, cost-effective in a way that makes sense to you, boom, you skip it and jump out. So you've got 4 targets in 6 seconds to get someone's attention today to get into a sales conversation.
Wow, that's just phenomenal, because in order to be, better, faster, different, and more cost effective, the game, like you said, is really evolving. Now, one thing that I noticed, that even with what you said, which is gold nuggets right there, one of the biggest challenges I think that might face, some teams, organizations, is confidence, mindset. It's like, okay, great. I understand these techniques and rules. Now, what have you found? You're going all across the globe. What have you found that most people struggle with as far as like confidence? Is it a mindset? Is it an identity? What have you noticed around that aspect, which is internal?
Great question. So there's a lot of different ways to speak to that. Obviously, a little more needs analysis with the client specifically to find out what some of their blocks are would give us some clues of where those targets are that we then can speak to strategically and tactically. So let's use the 2 you just brought up. Is it mindset, mind share, confidence, and or is it market share? So let me peel that back. I think what impacts a business's psyche, the individuals within the organization are trying to go out and take their deliverable, whether that deliverable is a tangible or intangible, take it to the marketplace. So let's take one of them to be mindset. Yep. So what is it that holds us back? One, well, maybe it's fear of getting no's and rejections. Okay, we can speak to that. Maybe it's fear that you're new into the marketplace and everyone else is buying from the big guy or gal, whoever that is, or everyone's comfortable with that other product brand. Okay, we can talk about that. So the first couple things I would do with an organization or with a sales team, and it's exactly, I live in leadership and sales because I believe the two are so married, and very few leadership, training firms, very few leadership consultants or coaches that work with leadership groups marry the two topics together. And that's one of the things that makes Jeff McGee different. And therefore I'd make the case of what makes me better, because you can talk leadership all day long and people don't know how to, generate revenue. End of the day, someone better have a whole lot of money they're willing to just keep funding a losing cause. And in COVID, again, I tell my clients, COVID is the best Christmas present I've ever been given in my 30 years of doing this work, because COVID gives everyone real-time business studies. I live in Las Vegas, high-rise condo on the Strip during COVID. And 85% of the restaurants on the Las Vegas Strip were immediately closed. And as of today, a year later, even though the Las Vegas Strip is open at the time we're doing this recording, 85% of those restaurants that are closed are still closed or partially closed even today. And the reason is because those businesses don't have a sales mindset. They were celebrity chefs, which were great, but they were coasting on the fact that they were an entrepreneur that had a great concept, but they really probably didn't understand sales, even though they thought they did in 2019. But when you got 1 million people walking up and down the street, by default, someone's going to fall into your restaurant. Oh my God, you're so successful. Well, when our governor said in our state that, restaurants have to be closed down, that's not what he said. So as an entrepreneur, you have to understand what zaps your confidence. So this story speaks to, Sean, your question. So, but wait a minute, you can't have someone come into your restaurant to sit down, but wait a second. I didn't see any, fast food restaurants or Starbucks closed in 2020 with drive-up windows. Most of them probably made more money in 2020 than they did in 2019. So if those restaurants would have said, wait a second, we have to instantly adjust our approach, change our trajectory to, in essence, change our website so people would know that, hey, you can order, you can come pick it up, you can drive up, we can do delivery to you. What if we went to, the thousands and thousands of people living in these high-rise condos in, on the Las Vegas Strip and establish a relationship, a partnership, a collaboration with the, that high-rise condominium management team and say, hey, you've got a staff here. What if we bring breakfast, lunch, and dinner to your teams and allow us to put some promotional material in your mail area that all those, tenants are coming up and down the elevator to go to their mail room every day. Boom, we'd be in business with food delivery, et cetera. So again, it's changing the sales and how I get my product there. Most restaurants are not really thinking sales because everyone comes into the store. They think sales starts when the guest comes in, how many turns to the table, how many food items can I get someone to buy? And most restaurants don't even understand that, because if you think about it, if you have a nice, let's just say mid-level restaurant, and we're using restaurant as our example in this conversation for everyone who's listening. Again, if you sit down at that white linen cloth restaurant, it doesn't have to even be 5 stars. I mean, you start adding up every time that customer service contact person, that waiter, the wait staff, the maitre d', et cetera, could be asking us, how can they service? There's easily a dozen different purchasing opportunities at most restaurants. Sean, you would experience if you sit down. But most restaurants are lazy. And that's what most people in the world are lazy, actually. They want an opportunity to make some money, but they don't really want to think and have their head in the game. So again, back to sales are those elements. So confidence comes from, number one, understanding the product that you really have to sell. The more you have product knowledge in your head, so think of it this way, folks, if you had blinders on, if you sell, let's say 10 products and you're really comfortable with only 3 of those 10, then you really only look for the 3 prospects that are most ideal for those 3 products you sell. But if you truly understand all 10 of your products, the blinders come off and you see more opportunities around you. And therefore, when someone asks you questions about your product or your service or deliverable, you're able to handle and address factually, honestly, and with integrity the objections or concerns or potential no's they give you. But lack of product knowledge is why you don't see as many opportunities, and you get no's and it shuts you down, zaps your confidence. So that's one. Second answer, and then I'll go pop it back to you, is that most people, they operate from what we've all been conditioned, and it's a concept of market share. So, I mean, some of the deliverables you have, one, you're a coach, you're a consultant. So you look at the marketplace and say, okay, of all the people buying my kind of a product from my competition, other coaches, what percentage of that market do I have? 1%, 30%, et cetera. And so while, yes, we do need to fixate on market share, because market share talks about the money that's already in movement in my space and what percentage of that can I get. If you want to have a growth mentality, which goes back to our theme of sales today for this entrepreneur or established business, you don't just fixate on market share, which I do that with my clients, but I take it to another level, which I call market potential. Where are there individuals that are not buying our product? Or where are there individuals not buying from any of us in our space, but they're buying from someone outside? How do you grow your new emerging market? So when you think about it through market potential, it's a game changer on how a business looks at what it's doing. Again, here in North America, 100% of my clients all had either their best year in 2020 or one of their best years in 2020, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's distribution, whether it's agriculture, whether it's finance, a diverse portfolio that I have, or even hospitality. How do you look at the market space? It's through better, faster, different, cost effective. It's through generational segmentation, because your customers fall in different generations. Generations like to be engaged in different ways. And then it's recognizing, is it just market share, market potential? Market potential is where you start to gain it. 3 answers to why you lack self-confidence. You don't see the opportunities, you don't understand your product, and you don't believe in what you're doing. Remove those 3, and whatever your sales goal is becomes way too easy to achieve.
Incredible. That's incredible. Well said.
Thank you, sir.
So, I love what you said, because, really what I'm hearing at the same time is sales and leadership is really just about becoming more aware of your space and also becoming resourceful, right? Really thinking outside of the box and just increasing that scope of, okay, like you said, what is my product and what are the real opportunities, and, really just digging deep into what you have. And that to me just really speaks to a lot of people who are like, oh, I hate the sales word, but this is such a valuable skill, Dr. Jeff, because we're selling all the time. We're selling to ourselves, either the mind, the thoughts, or we're selling to our families, kids,
absolutely,
spouses, right? And so when you're addressing that leadership, that to me is what you're really saying. It's not even about sales. It's just about, no, how do I become more resourceful, expand my life? Coming back to what you're saying, it's really about evolution. The business and the individuals who are actually thriving, they're expanding. So just to sort of like recap a lot of that, but can you speak to how we are selling ourselves and some of the tactics that you found the most successful people do, whether it be routines or affirmations or whatever that we do, sell to ourselves or to our personal lives as well?
So powerful question. So there again, we can unbundle that and unpack that one. Thank you, Sean. And there's another whole podcast series. So let's unpack that and just hit a couple of them. So one, if I want to become more successful in selling, if you are selling a product where you are a part of the equation, it's relationship selling, then Sean, your statement of selling yourself is important to that for me. If you're selling a commodity and the consumer simply sees it as a commodity transaction, then you really don't matter. I hate to pop everyone's bubble. It's really, I need X and how fast can you get it to me? And that's really the conversation. Now, you may sell a little bit of you in that perspective, that if you can, get the deliverable to them, they love you. And instead of, getting that from 9,000 other vendors, which I hate that label, they're going to come to you because they don't see you as really the equation. They're seeing you as a vendor, a supplier in that supply chain. But if we're talking about selling ourselves as that solo business professional entrepreneur that's watching us today, or a large global brand, then the people are important. So I would kind of think of it in three levels. If I want to establish a connection with someone that's going to lead to a sales relationship, a partnership where I'm going to have repeat or multiple interactions, transactions with you, then the first thing you actually have to sell is yourself. You have to sell you that you are professional, you're credible, you're reliable, you understand them, you're taking time to do needs analysis and discovery and Q&A to find out about them and their organization needs, position needs. So the whole first series of onboarding questions in that relationship or onboarding into your CRM system and into your environment and ecosystem is going to be all about the person. The more that you and I get to know each other, that starts to become one way to grab and connect. Then the second whole series of Q&A discovering questions is going to be around their needs and your products. I marry the two together. Again, what are their needs now and intermediately and down the road? And what products do you have that can solve their needs right now, intermediate and down the road? So you first start by the people connect, then you go to the product delivery connect. And then the third level is going to be all about the solutions. How do you connect them with those solutions? How do they integrate and use your solutions? And how does it become a part of their lifestyle? So now they automatically think of you and their psychology. When they think of doing anything, your name's a part of it. So that's really kind of the three-legged stool of sales from a perspective that you do have to sell you. So then now if we come back to the you portion, what would they expect someone in your industry to look like in terms of dress or uniform? Again, I always wear black. That's my uniform. Again, even when I'm kind of in relaxed play clothes, it's still going to be black, black jeans, etc. So what's your brand? What do they expect out of you? If you're I don't know, let's just make something up. Let's say you're in health and fitness. I'm just going to make this story up. Well, if you're in health and fitness, then you walk in and you're 300 pounds overweight. There's a disconnect. There's a problem right there. If you're in health and fitness, again, just to use this, weird example, no one would ever connect that to our conversation. Do you actually work out? Have you ever, participated in competitions if that's in your space? Are there any degrees that you could have or certifications you could have, or have you written any courseware or programs on this? So those elements. So again, just like me in my industry, I may have several certifications, and to the person that's not in my space, who cares? It doesn't mean anything. But if you're in my space, to know that I am a certified management consultant, okay, that makes me better or different than maybe someone else. If I work with boards of directors and there's only 2 places in North America you can go to get a certification to be a certified board executive, and I hold one of those certification degrees, well, that makes me better, different than someone else. I may be therefore able to more efficiently serve you, help you, or etc. So as an individual, part of that selling is you. Again, your look, your uniform, your style, your position. If you pull up in a vehicle, a company car, a truck, van, what have you, does it look first class? A fraternity brother of mine is in lots of businesses in the Chicagoland area, and one of the businesses is a a franchise he owns. It's called 1-800, Got Junk, basically. And so the beauty of whoever created that company, which was out of Canada, is that, now we're not just going to come pick up your junk and throw it away. Well, you're going to hire us. So there's the first ring on the cash register. You're going to pay us to take your junk, but we're actually going to sort it when we put it on our trucks as to what we can recycle and make money off it. There's the second ring on the cash register. But again, the service techs that show up in that clean, nice truck that's painted and looks great, they always have to carry with them 1 to 2 additional shirts and jackets in the back of the vehicle in case when they show up at your place, they're looking dirty from last. They're going to change their outer clothes so they look professional. They're selling themselves. They're not going to look like, someone that's a little sketchy and skeptical when they walk up to your door. So those elements, if I walk into your store, what's my first impressions? That's branding. So again, what's the outside of the store look like? That's impressions and branding. So there's a lot of ways to speak to that question. But again, if you look sharp, then you're more likely going to, come across as sharp. And if you're not sharp, it's probably because you don't have enough self-esteem, self-respect to even get dressed and look like you're professional in the morning. And sometimes that rubs people the wrong way. I travel a lot. I do about 10 to 20 airline flights every month. And I'm just stunned. Before COVID, it was bad. But after COVID, it's like half the planet's brains have been evidently lost to COVID. Because people walk onto planes and I'm thinking, wow, did you mean to go from your bedroom to your bathroom and you forgot how you were dressed and you walked out your front door? No self-esteem, no self-respect, no self-confidence, no self-worth, no self-image. But if you dare to bring that up to them, I bet you they would get bent out of shape and upset. But that's also selling. They're selling to people that don't know them, who they are and what they think of themselves. It's stunning.
That can be a talk all to itself as far as, the branding and the self-confidence, which that's the space that I'm playing in, is the whole inner strength on that as well, and applying that to entrepreneurs. But when, so I'm going to throw something out to you, maybe a little bit out of left field at you, Jeff, but when someone is even trying to discover a brand, or do you find that brands evolve? How do we look at brands as far as, this is how I create my brand or my company's brand? Is there any key points to sort of look at how to create a brand?
Great question. So let's unpack that one. What is it that I want to start a business to do? What's my deliverable? What's my service? What's my cause? That should be driven, if you back up a little bit further, by what are you passionate about? And you back that up a little bit further by identifying what are your core values, because your values drive how you think inwardly and outwardly, which then impact how you act inwardly and outwardly, and what you are really going to be excited about. There's your passion. Okay, how do I apply that in a way that I can monetize it so we can make some money? So now all of that front, back, I now have a product and a deliverable. My brand. Well, there's a lot of ways to look at brand. If you are an established business and someone says, we're trying to get some brand clarity, then I would say, okay, stop. One quick way to figure out what your brand is go talk to your top customers and ask them, how do you see us as a business, as a firm, as an organization, or the people you work with? Tell us, if you were to define what our business is all about, what's our brand, they'll tell you. And what they tell you, there's your brand. And if it's not what you thought it was, well, then there's your clue. You're conveying to the market space, this is who we are, here's your brand. If I'm Delta Airlines, what's your brand? Before COVID, it was very clear. Their business was about making it fun, fast, and safe to travel from point A to point B. They treated their employees fantastically. Their employees were engaged. I got phenomenal service as a massive mega flyer on Delta Airlines, as an example. This is our brand. Our people, in essence, gave this level of customer care. I then experienced that as a customer in different touch points that they would give to me, whether it's online, when I'm purchasing, en route to the airport, checking in at the flight gate, on the airplane, off the airplane, any email follow-up or text follow-up. All of those different touch points reaffirmed what their brand is. If today, in 21, they're now taking views on lifestyle in the market space, or politics in the market space, or social causes in the market space, and that's in alignment with my views, then our brands are in alignment. But if now they're doing things that they weren't doing in 2019, it may cause me as a mega customer to say, is that someone I want to be aligned with? So brand is a massively important topic. Dolly Parton, one of the world's top singers and most successful singers and most financially affluent singers, does a ton of things globally, also in North America, also in the United States, and also in the state of Tennessee where she lives, that she never reaches out for publicity or attention on. A lot of things. It's stunning. But in that one consistent thread is that she has off and on for decades been asked her views on politics or lifestyle issue or social conscious issues. And she's been very polite to say that that's not my job. I'm an entertainer. I'm not going to give you my views on those. It doesn't mean I don't have them, but I'm an entertainer. As soon as I tell you what my views are, I now step into a different space. And I have the ability to alienate 50% of my fans and excite 50%. And that's not my job. See, she understands her brand. And so she's not being positive or negative. She's being respectful. So I use that because the example I just gave is highly volatile in the world of today because people are coming down on different topics. It's like, wait a minute, is that your role? And that's how you got to where you are. See, a lot of people forget how they build their brand, because you said the word evolve. You've posed multiple questions in that one question. So as you evolve, you've also got to be very focused on what is our brand, and do I start to do things that I realize that I'm going to evolve away from my brand, and the next thing you know, I cease to exist. Perfect example. In case someone's just shown up on the planet, there's a new company called Amazon out there. So if you've just arrived, well, if Sears and Roebuck Corporation, based in the United States and was a global brand and very big in North America, understood what it was doing, Amazon wouldn't exist. Or better yet, back up, Montgomery Ward's, which was a global brand based in North America, based in the United States, understood what it was doing, Amazon wouldn't exist. Well, Montgomery Ward's went out of business first because it didn't understand its evolving brand. Then Sears went out of business because it didn't understand its evolving brand. But if you understand Amazon, all that Amazon is Sears. It's a place you go to buy a product. Well, Sears already had all of them. And Amazon has a directory and inventory of all the products. You just type in what you're wanting. It takes you to that virtual page, basically. Well, Sears had a huge catalog of anything you could buy on the planet. So they had already had the sourcing. They had the customers coming in. They even had a mailing list because they would mail that big catalog out every year, for decades. So if they realized that people still want to have that in-store experience and they want to drive to come in and touch stuff, they would still be here, but they would have evolved their stores so they didn't look like, dirty dumps. And they would have realized all we have to do is digitize all of this crap we already have in our book, which was already digitized. It was in a computer somehow if they hit print on them, and take it to the internet world. Then they would have been there before Amazon, and Amazon more likely never would have existed. But what Jeff Bezos understood was the evolving market space is still going to want to go touch something. They're still going to want to go see it on the shelf. They're still going to want to have that experience. But that market's getting smaller. Not zero, it's just getting smaller because people want things in a better way, which better can be defined as easier. I maybe don't want to leave the comfort of where I live. I want to just use my phone or computer to order something, have it delivered, in a couple of hours or the next day. So again, brands evolve. Yes. You get that by recognizing where is the growth market, that's market potential. Where's the current market share? What do my current customers want? How am I connecting and following up with them for what the next customer, interaction could be? But to design your brand right out of the gate, you first identify what's the business you want to be in and what's the deliverable you want to take to the market space, and is there any money there? Then if there is, then you start to design out your product and how you're going to, promote it, share it, showcase it, deliver it, make it. Then that starts to evolve into what your brand is, whether it's cookies or whether it's pet food or whether it's a cafe or whether it's a bistro or whether it's a gym or whether it is, online coaching and training that I do here. And I've been living in the online training world for 20 years. So COVID wasn't a problem for me. I have hundreds of hours in sales leadership and in management, programs and courseware that people could go online and pay to take, or live programs. In 2019, my primary element is I come in and work with businesses for a full day and do leadership engaged programming that's applicable to their needs. And there's 29 days worth of them applying it, online portal connections or coaching work. And I come back the next month and we keep adding to it. And it's a 1-year minimum relationship. Well, none of my clients canceled contracts in 2020. We instantly changed our approach to the internet. And we still did 6 hours inside the computer. No one bitched and complained. And if anything, people said, oh my God, this is better than having you live because we can actually see each other. So it wasn't just me on the screen. One of the different ways I did it was I want everyone's cameras engaged so everyone can see each other. And it's kind of hard to multitask and people will tell when you're not engaged. And we break into breakout rooms of half a dozen people, even if I had hundreds on the screen, and they would then talk about these ideas. We'd come back and debrief and was even more engaging, more applicable. So again, what's your brand? My brand is I solve their solutions, I engage their people, and I help them to be more profitable. And I do that in those two ways. So what's your brand? As the market evolves, your core brand may not change at all. The delivery system may be tweaked. New deliverables, not that you get rid of old ones, but new deliverables may be created. All of that comes out of the conversation of brand. And keep in mind, easily 80% of all these brand experts out there that you can hire, you should never hire because they have no clue what they're talking about. You need to, listeners, vet significantly better the people you hire. Here's a way to blow up every consultant and coach out there. You're going to hire someone, ask them to give you a minimum of 5 people they're working with right now. Give me their names. And if they don't, there's a question. I mean, because almost every one of my clients are already in my phone contact list, as I bet you've got your clients in your phone contact list. If you're doing a damn good job, there should be no reservation or apprehension to say, you know what, you're the CEO of a $200 million company, and that's usually right about where I start. My clients typically are 200 to 300 million up to into the billions in size. They typically have around 200-ish employees up to around 1,000. So again, I understand your structure. And if you want to talk to another CEO, not a problem. You know what? Let me text Sean, see if I can introduce you to. And if I've been doing my job right, Sean's always going to say yes. And within seconds, I can be setting up a Zoom call with the 3 of us. So that's a really quick way to blow up everyone that wants your money because they're a branding expert or a coach or a consultant.
Phenomenal. And you just answered the question that I was going to ask you, which is, you know, very curious about what you're doing now and obviously how you shifted. So going from, you know, I know you'd go into corporations and do all day. And so now you're just talking about the online space.
Yes. Well, I walk out at conventions and I work convention stages of hundreds to thousands out there and do a power keynote. And again, I'm not right for all conventions. If someone's bringing me in, they've got to understand when Jeff leaves the stage, he will have blown up everyone's brain in that room multiple times with new strategies and techniques they can use the second they walk out of the room. So if what you're wanting is a motivational speaker to come in and make everyone feel good, you are an idiot because that's the crap we were doing in 2019. And let me speak to that. There's a lot of even friends I have that are damn good at motivational speaking. And I hate that title. Yeah. They're one-hit wonders. In 2020, January, February, they had full calendars for 2020. But by May, June, almost all of them were unemployed. They had no conferences, conventions they're speaking at. And some were even posting on some social media platforms, which stunned me. But it was an aha that they were talking about, you know, they had no business. It's the first time in their life that they looked out over the calendar and they saw no employment, basically. You know, contracts were canceled. They were doing a second mortgage on their home to generate cash flow to pay their bills. And so my statement is this, it's a little bit tough, but if you had a legitimate deliverable in January, February 2020, and you were unemployed in June of 2020, then you did not have a legitimate deliverable in January. Because if your product was legitimate before COVID, it should have been even more legitimate during COVID. And what I'm seeing stunningly that just blows my brain are people that are going out on stages now in 21 because conferences are coming back and they're getting everyone pumped and excited. That's the cotton candy crap of last year that once you touch it, it's gone and nothing. You know, I may or may not motivate you. I hope I do. I may or may not inspire you. I hope I do. I may or may not make you excited. I hope I do. But none of that matters if you don't have a new way of thinking and a new way of doing when you leave the room. So whether I'm at a convention or I'm coming in and working with an individual client in their leadership team or sales team, or I'm doing one-on-ones, it's always the same formula. Success is really simple when you understand the formula, and I'll talk about that later if you want.
Well, let's dive into that. But you know what you're talking about, 1,000%, Jeff, that is so bang on. Like whether we're talking about fitness or business or like even spirituality, you have to have deliverables. Otherwise, you're just guessing. Results are unpredictable. And isn't it true? Results and success has to be predictable.
It has to be if you want to replicate it, and that's a perfect segue. So let's say I'm working with an organization that's manufacturing. They want to identify their key performance indicators of success so that they can build a business around it, then replicate it, and create constructive positive redundancies and grow forward. Well, let's unbundle that. What most organizations think they're doing, but they're not really doing, is they're not really identifying what it is that you can repeatedly do. So success is, if I have a manufacturing line and I have automation and human beings connected into that, I've got to study the automation and say, okay, what is it that is the actual work product that it's doing that I need it to do, and how I need it done. The human beings that are part of that assembly line, what's the actual work product that they do, and what is it I need done, and how do I need it done? Once you can identify and quantify it, then you can start to replicate it. If I'm looking at salespeople, if I'm looking at a pro athlete, what is it that they do and how do they do it? And once you have that and you can quantify it, that's called a work product. So here's the formula. Everyone, you need to write this down. I'm giving you $1 million piece of consulting, and I'm kicking myself for saying this because I should be charging you for all this. But the formula is WP times F equals ROI. Now, some of the answers within those I'm not going to give you because that's how people hire me, but the simplistic model is real damn simple. If you want to become successful at anything, you study the most successful people right now doing what you want to do and identify what is it they do, how do they do it. That's WP. What's the work product? So if I want to look at fitness and somewhat get into shape, I don't have to become a competitor, but if I want to just get into shape, what are some of the exercises I could do? That's a work product. If I don't want to buy any equipment, I don't want to go to a gym, then what's the way I can get in shape just with what I have around me in my house? Okay, lift your briefcase or lift a milk jug filled up with water. I mean, so you can still give people a WP. How many times a day do I do that, or when do I do that, or how often do I do that? So once you have the work product, then it goes times F. F is frequency. Frequency then is how much, how often, what's the cadence, what's your pace, etc. I went to college a zillion years ago on an athletic scholarship. I was a marathon runner, a distance runner. It's not me today, but I still carry over into business today the things I learned then, which were WPs. If I'm running longer distance in this race, then how do I want to attack the beginning, the hills, the valleys, the unstable ground, the stable ground? Work product. How do I do all of that? Where do I need to be at time-wise at certain mile points? Frequency. Then how do I carry my body, move my arms, my legs? If I start to get a cramp, what do I do? WP. How much of that do I need to do? There's your F. I mean, life is nothing but a WP times F to generate those ROIs, return on investments. So that's one element. So for example, I have a client that's in sales. They have 3,880 sales representatives across the United States. 3,880. In 2020, 146 made their sales goal. So think about this. 3,800 sales reps, only 146 made their sales goal during COVID. All the ones that didn't make their sales quota, what they use as their excuse, COVID. And all of their bosses, because the majority of their bosses are either uneducated or they're just pathetically lazy and worthless. They, in essence, don't understand WP times F and the word evolve, because interesting, the number one salesperson in the nation of this 3,880 made their sales goal during COVID like everyone else. And the primary way that you made your sales quota before COVID, he had to make the same shift and he still made his quota. So interesting. See, if anyone studied his WP and how he did it and how often he did an F, then they would have a map they could give to the other 3,700 salespeople basically and say, look, you have no excuse in 2020/2021 to not make your goal because we have 146 targets that did and number one guy did. So we all should be. But if you don't understand your WP individually or as a sales leader, if you don't understand it or don't want to hold people accountable, that's how you can, in essence, debate mediocrity. The way people keep jobs when they're mediocre is there's no quantifiable data to show them how to coach them up to be better. Or if they don't want to do the work, then it becomes obvious they don't have the attitude and passion to want to do it. So find another place in a business that they can bring value. And if they can't bring value anywhere else, say, I'm sorry that you resigned today. And then they look at you weirdly and say, what do you mean resign? Well, obviously you want to do the damn jobs. That meant you quit. Bye.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, that's that, everyone. I hope you heard that, because that is it right there. That absolutely, Jeff, that's absolutely phenomenal. Gold right there. And that's, you're right. That's worth millions, not, and more.
So sales and leadership is where I live. A couple times a year in Las Vegas, Nevada, I do a 2-day sales boot camp where that's all we fixate on. And again, if anyone wants to know more about that, go to my website, jeffreymcgee.com, and you can find out about that. But whether I'm coming into an organization or whether it's a public event I do, it's always around the leadership side and the sales side. And even when I'm working just with leaders, I actually spend time throughout the course of the first year talking about how do you, manage your internal constituents, customers, how do you manage those external constituents and customers, and how do you do it from a growth model? How do you do it from acquisition model? How do you do it from a sales engagement model? Because again, as I said, during COVID, it validated what I've been saying for decades and I've been writing about in my books and college textbooks. I don't have to contrive a case study to share my models anymore. COVID's a Christmas present. Every business that thrived, the leaders understood sales, or very quickly they got in touch with sales. And every business that's struggling or went out of business, sadly, did not understand sales. It is so easy to generate revenue in a business. But if you're scared, if you're intimidated, if things aren't going good, if you just lost your biggest client, that does zap your self-confidence, one of your earlier questions. So I tell people just to back up. Again, yes, you do have to have positive affirmations. You do have to surround yourself with positive people. You do have to, listen to audiobooks or TED Talks or et cetera on positives. You do have to have all that positive information coming in, but be careful. I mean, I know some people have done TED Talks. And I just shake my head because they are 100% frauds. They're talking about stuff that's a complete lie. So you do have to also kind of vet the consultant you're going to hire, the coach you're going to hire. Whenever someone writes a book, just like my books, look at the author page, the bio page, and see what they're bringing to the conversation. Is it just academic, and that could be great, or are they bringing practitioners? Have they ever lived what they're talking about? Sean, you've got a new book that's out, and if I look at your author page, and again, there's certain factoids I know about you that you didn't share, so I'll share a couple of those with our listeners right now. Okay, just kidding. But if you know Sean's story and you read that book, you go, okay, this stuff adds up. It makes sense. He's done it. He's lived it. He's studied it. So same thing, again, with my magazine, I get phenomenal people. Here's the first female CEO of a Fortune 50 corporation. When you talk about success, you get a pretty good clue very quickly. Richard Branson, not only has he written for my magazine off and on, he and I have written 3 books together. So you very quickly get clues of what success is when you understand the person's backstory. But sadly today, a lot of people get distracted or get, in essence, hooked on some people's, social media brand marketing. Some people are damn good, but they're only one story, one trick ponies. And if you need to go very deep, you're going to quickly realize they recycle back to the beginning because they don't really understand in great detail what it is that they're selling. Know yourself, know what you're selling, know the market space, have positive, affirmations, reinforcement, and resources around you, and you can walk through any wall that's out there. Boom!
Oh, Jess, phenomenal!
Thank you, sir.
Phenomenal. Wow, I love it. And this is so obviously you gave your website, and Dr. Jeff, you've got tons of books, and definitely I want everyone to look you up, follow you, see what's going on.
Thank you.
Engage with you, and so let me just sort of finalize on this one question, but before I do, that last point, living it, that is the real deal breaker right there. If someone's not living it,
discipline. It's all about discipline. Again, a lot of people don't understand that. I in my magazine, I've interviewed, Olympic gold athletes, CEOs of Fortune 100, best-selling authors, celebrities, pro athletes. In North America, Indian heritage is a fascination of mine. So in almost every issue, I have a tribal Indian chief write an article. I work with the military, so I always have a adjutant general here in the United States. Each state has their own military. A lot of people don't realize that. It's called the National Guard. And the senior person that runs that Air and Army Guard for the governor for that state, which makes up the larger piece of our national defense, is called an adjutant general. So I always have that 2-star general write an article. But all those editorial pieces are never, I've had the last 4 presidents of our country have written for my magazine. So it's never about politics or religion or whatever might be the obvious or the background. It's always about share with us a thought you have on success, performance, achievement from your DNA, your heritage, your perspective. The content's always evergreen. You can't find it anywhere else on the internet except what we have, that we do. And I never ask questions around it. Like Warren Buffett, one of the world's top investors. Well, I'm not going to ask Warren Buffett a question when I interviewed him years ago about finance and investment. People would expect it. I'm going to ask him different business or human capital sorts of questions. But it all comes down to discipline is my point. One of the things that whenever I do have the opportunity to do a Q&A with any of these phenomenal personalities that I've been doing for 30 years, is that there are certain standard questions I ask everyone to see if there's differences or similarity. And one of them is, if you only had a couple of seconds or a couple of minutes to coach a potentially high achieving individual in your eyes, what would be some sound advice you would give them? And what's interesting is that almost every single person for 30 years has said the same two words. One is discipline. Second is passion. You want to be successful, you have to have passion in what you're doing and the discipline to do it, because there's a lot of hard work, just like my business and yours. I mean, I've got to have the discipline to do the research, do the work, go to my office, do the administrative tasks, do the financial tasks, do the internet tasks, do the research, do the writing. That sometimes people don't see all that behind the scenes work that it takes because they got a ton of staff, or they do it. I don't know when the hell they do it, but it takes hours, just like today. I mean, I spent the last 4 days on the opposite side of my country. I flew back, and got back into town yesterday, had my personal life, my business life. And just like today, you and I prepping for this, I have 3 clients that I'm dealing with, helping them with some of their challenges while trying to have a personal life, while trying to do prep work for you before we get on here. I mean, it's discipline. The discipline, it's all going to blow up and then you're screwed, to be real blunt. Passion and discipline carries you through a whole lot of crap in the universe.
Wow. And that was my last question, which is...
No, it can't be your last, because everyone, viewers, look at Sean, look at Jeff. See, again, Sean's been coaching me on getting into shape for years, but if I don't, in essence, have the discipline to do what he says and I don't listen to him, I suck as a client. That's why he fired me, the second 2 seconds he met me. He goes, "You going to do this, Jeff?" Probably not. You ain't a good avatar for me. I'll give you some advice. You have to have the discipline and passion to do things, just as I'm having some fun back and forth with you. But that's true.
It is true. It is true. I love it. I love it. You're a phenomenal human being.
Thank you.
Let me ask this question to you, Jeff, because what is success to you? What is success to you?
That's
a phenomenal person in front of me. What does success mean to you? Because it's different for everyone.
So it's a great question. And I get that or variation of that question asked a lot. So I appreciate it. So I have given it a lot of thought. And the answer is the same answer I always give. And especially on these podcasts, if someone asks me that question, again, folks, you're going to hear me say the same thing. It's basically legacy. Success to me is the word legacy, meaning just like you as the host of this phenomenal show and your viewers, what did I do today that could help you to be better, faster, different, and more cost effective at what you're doing today, tomorrow, next month, next year? So legacy. If you're a parent, your children are not your legacy. Your children are not your legacy. People get this wrong. There's a lot of messed up human beings out there. You and I see them every day. Well, it's not the parent, your child's not your legacy. It's obviously that. It's what your child does to the next person that they engage in life, and how do they enrich that person's life, or how do they plus it or subtract from them? There's where legacy is measured, that jump a generation, as they say. So my legacy is how I can help someone else to be happier, more productive, more successful. If they got people around them, how they can engage those people to make them more productive, so that it's the people that they engage. So a lot of ways to measure that word, but one, do I truly enjoy what I do? Absolutely. Am I passionate about it? Yeah, probably I'm fanatical about it. Am I disciplined in it? Yeah, probably to the point that it drives people in my life crazy. But if you think about it, again, that's one of the traits of successful people. They are fanatical about it. That's why they're successful. They're disciplined. That's why they're successful. They're passionate about it. That's why they're successful. Again, think about it. On this planet, here's the disservice. On this planet, there's a massively long line of people that are all envious of what someone else has, what someone else has accomplished. But I've never seen the line of people that are envious of all the freaking work it took to get there. That's our problem. And so then when you hand something to somebody without having to do that work, they don't understand it, number one. They typically don't value it, number two. Therefore, they're not going to appreciate it, number three. So to me, how I measure it, without getting into a specific KPI, it's about legacy. It's about outcome. It's about plus signing everyone. And sometimes that means having rude wake-up calls laying in someone's face.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh,
fun.
I cannot thank you enough for today.
Thank you, sir.
Jeff McGee, I cannot thank you enough. You're, again, phenomenal human being. Learn so much every time that we engage with each other. It's, yeah.
This is great. Thank you so much, Sean and Jesse, the silent partner behind the scenes, making us look good. again, thanks for everything you do as well. But again, it's having the right team around you. It's staying in your lane, being mindful that you can have an opinion, but there's places you probably don't want to share it. I've got tons of social conscious comments I'd love to make, but it would blow up my business because it would put my clients in an awkward business because all the haters that are out there. So I just stay focused. It's about leadership and it's about sales. That's the two things I know. It's where I grew up, whether I like it or not. And so that's what I study. That's what I surround myself with, great people in those spaces. And it's what I do every day. So I try to stay in my lane. So thank you so much for this opportunity to share with your viewers. And hopefully we've enriched them a little bit today by them being here.
Absolutely. Wow. Phenomenal. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you.